My wife's friends held a vote. The decision? Treat me like I'm invisible for 1 full month. They called it the experiment. They thought it would teach me a lesson, force me to see what I was taking for granted. They thought I would break. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. 2 weeks into their little game, my wife, Catherine, walked into a completely empty house. All my things were gone. The only thing I left behind was a short note on the kitchen counter. Invisible means gone. Her frantic calls started at 10 p.m., but I was already a ghost. This is a story of how their silence backfired, and how I showed them what true silence feels like. If you're ready for this story, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to Inspiration Seeker, and comment below what you think their reaction was. Let's get into it. Our life on the surface was perfect. We had that nice 2-story brick house in an Austin suburb. I'm James, by the way. I'm a systems analyst. I like things that are logical, stable, and predictable. My wife, Catherine, was the opposite. She was a high-energy sales executive, always closing deals, always the center of attention. I thought our different energies balanced each other out. I was the foundation. She was the fire. But her friends, especially Anya, they didn't see it that way. Anya was the leader of their group, charismatic, sharp, and in my opinion, deeply unhappy. She had this way of planting seeds of dissatisfaction. She had convinced Catherine that my steadiness wasn't strength. It was a weakness. My contentment wasn't ambitious. My quiet support wasn't dominant. The real trouble started, as it often does, over something small, a vacation. I had been working a massive project and wanted a quiet week, just the 2 of us. I suggested a cabin in Colorado. Hiking, quiet nights, just breathing. Catherine, however, had just come from brunch with Anya. My idea was shot down immediately. Anya and the girls are all going to Cabo, she said. It's already planned. You should be more spontaneous, James. I pushed back gently. I told her I just wanted time with her, not with her entire entourage. We argued. It was the first real fight we'd had in months. She accused me of trying to control her. Later that night, I was heading to the kitchen when I heard her on the phone in the bedroom, the door slightly open. It was Anya's voice on speaker, loud and clear. He's not respecting you, Kath, Anya said. He's trying to dim your light. You need to send a message. You need to show him, once and for all, that you are the one in charge. I just stood there, frozen. A message? What message? I had no idea what was about to hit me. A few nights later, the house filled with the sound of laughter and wine glasses clinking. It was Catherine's girls' night. I usually made myself scarce during these, but I always made an effort to be a good host first. I'd spent some time putting together a nice cheese board, brie, fig jam, some prosciutto. I walked into the living room, where Catherine, Anya, and 2 other friends were gathered. The second I entered, the conversation stopped. Dead. It wasn't just a pause. It was a vacuum. For women, who had been laughing a second before, were now staring at me. Not like a husband, but like an interruption. Like a waiter who brought the wrong order. I brought you guys a cheese board, I said, holding it out. Anya didn't even smile. She just looked at Catherine, raised an eyebrow, and then looked back at me. Catherine, avoiding my eyes, said, "Oh, just put it on the coffee table, James. Thanks." Her voice was flat, cold. I put the board down and retreated to my home office, shutting the door. The message was clear. I wasn't welcome. I tried to work, but the volume from the patio kept rising. Their voices were sharp, energized. Hours passed. I was about to head to bed when I went to the kitchen for a glass of water. Through the sliding glass door, I could see them, silhouetted by the backyard lights, huddled together. And then I heard Anya's voice, cutting through the night. "The invisible treatment," she declared. "It's the only way. For 1 month. No talking to him. No looking at him. Don't acknowledge his existence. He'll either break down and finally realize what he has, or you'll know it's time to move on." There was a pause. I waited, holding my breath, praying for my wife to shut this down. To say, "That's insane, Anya. I'm not doing that to my husband." Instead, I heard Catherine's voice, hesitant but excited. For a month? You really think so? 100%, Anya said. It's a power move. Let's vote. All in favor. I heard the distinct clink of 4 wine glasses touching in a toast. The vote was unanimous. My sentence had been passed, and I was the only one who knew it. The vote was held on a Tuesday. The experiment began Wednesday morning. I woke up at 6:30 a.m., like always. Catherine was already in the bathroom, sitting at her vanity, applying makeup. The silence was the first thing I noticed. Usually, she'd have music on or a podcast. Today, nothing but the soft tap of her makeup brush. "Morning, honey," I said, walking over to the sink. She didn't flinch. She was looking in the mirror, but it was like she was looking through me. She met my eyes in a reflection, held the gaze for a split second, and then nothing. No smile, no good morning. She just picked up her mascara, turned her head slightly, and continued with her routine. I stood there for a moment, confused. "Bad night?" I asked. She finished, stood up, and walked straight out of the bathroom, brushing past my shoulder as if I was a piece of furniture. Down in the kitchen, I went through our usual routine. I started the coffee. I always made the pot, and I always poured us both a mug. I set hers, white with a blue C, on the counter where she always picked it up. She came down 5 minutes later, dressed for work. She walked over to the coffee machine, grabbed a different mug from the cabinet, a black one she never used, and poured her own cup. She walked right past a mug I had set out for her. "Okay," I said out loud, forcing a small laugh. "What's going on, Kath? Is this about the vacation? We can talk about it." She looked at her phone, sipped her coffee, and then walked the garage without a single word. The door closed behind her, and the house was silent again. I was more baffled than hurt at that point. Throughout the day, I sent a few texts. "Hey, hope your morning gets better. Did I do something? Just checking in. Love you." All of them were delivered. None of them were read. That evening was the final confirmation. I heard the garage door open at 6 p.m. I was in the kitchen, cooking dinner. I was making her favorite, a lemon garlic chicken. I thought, whatever this is, the smell of this will snap her out of it. She walked in, set her keys on the counter, and looked straight ahead. "Hey, welcome home." I said, "Dinner's almost." She didn't stop. She walked right past me, past the sizzling pan, and went to pantry. She grabbed a protein bar, tore it open, and walked upstairs. I heard the lock on our bedroom door click, followed by the sound of the bathtub faucet turning on. I stood there, spatula in hand, the chicken burning in the pan. This wasn't a bad mood. This wasn't a fight. This was a plan. The invisible treatment had begun. The next few days were a blur of escalating psychological torture. I went through all the stages you'd expect. First was confusion. I'd wake up and, for a split second, I'd forget. I'd roll over to say good morning, and the empty space beside me, she had started sleeping in the guest room, would bring it all crashing back. I'd ask questions into the void. "Catherine, please, just tell me what's wrong. This is crazy. We can solve this, whatever it is." Then came concern. By Friday, my mind went to dark places. Was she sick? Was she having a breakdown? Did she get some terrible news at work and was handling it this way? I'd say, "I'm worried about you, Kath. You can tell me. I'm here." My words just evaporated in the air. She would just turn on the TV, the volume loud enough to drown me out. By the end of the week, the concern was gone. It was replaced by a cold, simmering anger. This wasn't grief. It was a game. She would eat meals I had cooked, but only after I had gone to bed. I'd find the plate in the sink the next morning. She was taking the dog for walks, but only when I was in a meeting in my home office. She was deliberately timing her life to exist in the spaces I was not. But the moment that truly broke me, the moment that shattered any hope that this was just a misguided attempt to fix us, was on Sunday night. I was in the living room, reading. I heard her in the kitchen, laughing, a real, genuine laugh. It was the first sound she'd made in my presence in days. I walked to the doorway. She was on a video call on her laptop, propped up on the counter. It was Anya. Catherine was animated, smiling, telling a story about her workday. She was the woman I married right there in front of me. My heart jumped. "Catherine?" I said, desperate. Her face changed in an instant. The light in her eyes died. The smile vanished. Her expression became flat, cold, and hard. She looked at me, then at the screen, and said, "Hold on, Anya." And then she did the cruelest thing of all. She didn't close the laptop. She didn't end the call. She simply picked up the laptop, turned her back to me physically, and walked into the dining room, angling the screen so I was out of view. I heard her voice start up again. "Sorry about that." Anyway, as I was saying, I was no longer her husband. I was just an interruption, a ghost in my own home. The second week began with the same agonizing silence. But by day 9, something inside me changed. The pain didn't just fade. It crystallized. It turned from a hot, desperate grief into a cold, hard clarity. I was sitting in my home office, staring at a line of code, but I wasn't seeing it. I was replaying the last 9 days. The cold shoulder in the bathroom, the unused coffee mug, the way she turned her back on me while laughing with Anya. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't a cry for help. This wasn't a desperate wife trying to save her marriage. This was a power play. This was a calculated, coordinated, and cruel act of psychological warfare, orchestrated by Anya and executed by my wife. They thought they were sending a message. Appreciate me, fight for me, break down for me. But that wasn't the message I received. The message I got, loud and clear, was, "You are disposable." The message was that our vows, our history, our home, all that was so fragile that it could be switched off like a light, all based on a wine-fueled vote. The woman I loved was willing to psychologically dismantle me on a whim, to win a power struggle I didn't even know we were in. That night, for the first time in 9 days, I felt calm. The pleading was over. The desperation was gone. When Catherine came home, I didn't try to greet her. I didn't cook dinner. I stayed in my office. I heard her come in, pause in the hallway, probably surprised by the silent kitchen, and then call out. Not for me. She was ordering food. Later, I walked past her in the living room. She was on the couch, watching a show, a takeaway container on her lap. She didn't look up, and I didn't look at her. The invisible treatment was finally working, but it was working on both of us. I went back to my office, shut the door, and locked it. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. The screen illuminated my face. I didn't open a game. I didn't look at work. I opened a web browser and typed, "Best divorce lawyers in Austin." The experiment was over. My plan was just beginning. For the next 5 days, I lived a double life. It was, in a way, darkly humorous. Catherine thought she was ignoring me, but in reality, she had just given me the perfect cover. I was no longer an invisible husband. I was an invisible operator. While she was at her sales meetings, ignoring my texts, I was in my car on my lunch break, on a consultation call with one of the best divorce lawyers in the state. His advice was clear, concise, and brutal. "Be methodical, Mr. Collins," he said. "Separate your finances, but don't be punitive. Secure your new residence. Get your personal, irreplaceable items. Do not engage. Do not react." So I became a creature of logistics. While she was in the guest room, ignoring my presence, I was in my office, executing. I opened a new private bank account. Following my lawyer's exact instructions, I initiated a wire transfer for exactly 50% of our joint savings. Not a penny more. It was a clean, logical transaction. Next, a place to live. I didn't need much, just an escape pod. I found a furnished corporate apartment in downtown Austin with a 6-month lease. The entire application was done online. The digital keys were sent to my personal email. The packing was the easiest part. While she was at yoga or out with Anya, I was in the garage. I bought boxes from a store across town and hidden them in my car trunk. I packed my clothes, my computer equipment, my college textbooks, and my grandfather's watch. I stacked the sealed boxes neatly against the garage wall, right next to her SUV. She passed them every day. She never saw them. She had trained herself not to. My final call was to a small, local moving company. I requested 1 truck and 2 men for a small-scale move. I scheduled them for Saturday morning at 10 a.m. I already knew she wouldn't be there. According to the spa day with the girls, entry on the kitchen calendar, she'd be gone all day, celebrating her victory. It was Saturday, day 14. 2 full weeks of the experiment. The morning started like all the others. Silence. But this time, it was charged with a new energy. It was the energy of an ending. Catherine was in the kitchen, dressed in expensive yoga pants and a designer top, ready for her spa day. She was visibly pleased with herself, tapping on her phone with a small, self-satisfied smirk. I walked past her to grab a bottle of water. I didn't exist. As I was heading to the garage, I saw her screen light up with a text message. It was from Anya. Catherine's reply, which she typed with a smug little laugh, was all I needed to see. "He's still holding out, but he looks miserable," she wrote. "You were right, Anya. He's about to crack." I felt nothing. No anger, no pain. Just the quiet hum of an engine about to be put in gear. That text was her final, unknowing signature on our divorce. At 9:30 a.m., she left, her white SUV pulling out of the driveway. She was off to celebrate her perceived victory with the very people who had helped her stage this coup. The moment her car turned the corner, my operation began. At 9:45 a.m., I called the moving company to confirm. "Yes, I'm ready." At 10 a.m., the truck arrived. It was a small, unmarked box truck, just as I had requested. 2 men got out, and I handed them a list. "Only the boxes in the garage and the items in the home office," I said. "Everything else stays." They were professionals. They were in and out in less than an hour. My desk, my chair, my computer, and the 15 boxes of my life were loaded onto the truck. I did a final walk through the house. It was so clean, stripped of my presence. I went into the guest room I'd been sleeping in and stripped the bed. I took my toothbrush from the bathroom. I walked into the primary bedroom and looked at the wedding photo on her nightstand. The 2 smiling people in that frame were strangers. I went downstairs, took my set of house keys from my keyring, and placed them neatly on the polished granite of the kitchen counter. I felt the weight of my life lighten. I was done. I didn't see her come home. I wasn't there, but I know exactly how it happened. I can see it in my mind as clearly as if I were a fly on the wall. She would have pulled into the driveway at 9:45 p.m., relaxed from a full day of mimosas, massages, and mutual self-congratulation with Anya. She would have walked in, humming, expecting to find me in the den, moping. She'd enjoy one more night of the treatment before deciding, like a queen, to finally grant me her attention. "James," she calls out, expecting silence. The house is dark. She flips the switch, and the illusion shatters. The first thing she notices is the emptiness. The big 70-inch TV we bought last Super Bowl, gone. The console beneath it, which held my gaming systems, gone. The coat rack by the door, my jacket and my running shoes, gone. "What?" She walks into the kitchen, a cold dread starting to creep up her spine, replacing the warm buzz from the wine. And she sees it. The single white envelope on the otherwise spotless counter. My house, key sitting on it like a paperweight. Her hands would be shaking as she slides a key off, opens a flap. She reads the 4 words. Invisible means gone. It doesn't make sense to her. This is just a note. It's not the result. This isn't how the experiment was supposed to end. She drops the note and runs. She sprints up the stairs to our bedroom, a "James, this isn't funny" dying in her throat. She flings open the closet doors. Her side is immaculate, a wall of shoes, dresses, and designer bags. My side is a void. Every hanger is empty. Every shelf is bare. She runs to my office, the place she'd avoided for 2 weeks. She throws open the door. The desk, the ergonomic chair, the monitors, the bookshelves, all of it, gone. There's nothing left but an indentation in the carpet and the faint smell of lemon polish. This wasn't a bluff. This was an extraction. A cold, sharp panic she has never known in her life grips her. This wasn't the plan. This wasn't in the script. She scrambles for her phone, fumbling it, her hands shaking too hard to unlock it. She finally gets to her call log. She hits my name. She looks at the clock on her screen. 10 p.m. She lifts the phone to her ear, desperate to hear my voice. Even if it's angry, the phone doesn't even ring. Straight to voicemail. She calls again. Voicemail. The panic turns frantic. She starts texting, a rapid-fire barrage of messages. James, where are you? This isn't funny. I don't understand. Come home, we can talk. The game is over. James, I'm sorry. Please answer me. She calls my best friend. Voicemail. She calls my parents. Voicemail. She doesn't know it yet, but I'd already blocked them all. I'd blocked her. I'd blocked Anya. I'd blocked all of them. She is, for the first time, completely and utterly alone in the crushing silence she created. The movers were gone. My truck, parked a block away, was loaded with the last of my personal items. I was standing alone in the house I had helped pay for, and it was no longer mine. The silence was profound, but it wasn't the heavy, oppressive silence of the last 2 weeks. This was a different silence. It was clean. It was the sound of a slate being wiped. My first instinct was to just walk away, to simply vanish, fulfilling the role they had cast for me. But as I stood there, I realized that leaving wasn't enough. This was an experiment. After all, it needed a conclusion. They had asked a question with their actions. I owed them an answer. I had considered writing a long letter, a multi-page epic detailing my pain, my betrayal, and every single moment of disrespect. I could have quoted her in Anya. I could have pleaded, "How could you?" But then I realized that's what they expected. They expected me to be broken. They expected a tear-stained, desperate plea. They wanted to see the man they had reduced to a begging, emotional wreck. To give them that would be to give them the victory. My words had meant nothing for 14 days. Why should I believe they would mean anything now? No, I wouldn't give them words. I would give them a result. I walked to the kitchen counter, where I had deliberately left a single, plain white envelope and a sheet of paper. I took a black pen from my pocket. I clicked it open. The sound was sharp, final. I put the pen to the paper. I did not write, "Dear Catherine." I did not write, "I'm leaving you." I wrote a simple 4-word sentence. The only logical conclusion to their experiment. The final answer to their question. Invisible means gone. I folded the paper, slipped it into the envelope, and sealed it. I didn't write her name on it. She would be the only one here to find it. I placed the envelope in the absolute center of the kitchen island, right on the cold granite. I placed my house key directly on top of it. It was a clear, undeniable, and perfectly logical statement. Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it, and I heard the lock click behind me. I didn't look back. My phone was off for the entire weekend. I was in my new apartment, 20 floors up, looking out over the lights of downtown Austin. I didn't need to hear the buzzing of her frantic calls or the angry text from Anya. I just needed the silence. My silence. The kind I chose. I turned my phone on Monday morning. I didn't check my personal inbox. I had already blocked all of them. I was only waiting for one email. It arrived at 11:05 a.m. It was from my lawyer. It contained 2 words, service confirmed. My lawyer, following my precise instructions, had not sent the divorce papers to the house. That was her tomb, not mine. He had sent a process server directly to her office. I was told later, through mutual acquaintances, exactly how it happened. Catherine was in a major sales meeting with her entire team and the regional VP. The receptionist buzzed in, "Ms. Collins, there's a gentleman here with a delivery for you." Catherine walked out into the glass-walled lobby, confident, probably expecting flowers or an award. Instead, the server looked at her and said, "I have a petition of divorce for Catherine Collins." He handed her the papers right in front of her colleagues. The humiliation was absolute. The powerful, in-charge executive served with divorce papers at her place of work. The ultimate power play. It turned out wasn't hers to make. The fallout was immediate. She, of course, ran to Anya, hysterical, looking for comfort. But Anya, the moment things got real, showed her true colors. "Well, Catherine," she'd said, her voice cold, "if he could just leave you like that, the marriage must have been weak. I think I did you a favor." The favor cost Catherine everything. The friend group fractured, not wanting to be associated with the fallout. She couldn't afford the house on her own. She had to sell it at a loss. That was 6 months ago. Today, I'm still a systems analyst. I'm in my high-rise, and I've met someone new, an architect. She says my steadiness is grounding. When I speak to her, she listens. It's a nice change. As for Catherine, I hear she's in a small condo near the freeway. She's alone. She got what she wanted, a life without me in it. She's left with nothing but the echo of her own voice, begging into a dead-end line, and the new, crushing silence that she has to live in every single day. It's been 2 years since I packed my life into those boxes. The silence I live in now isn't the cold, empty silence of that house. It's peace. That architect I mentioned, her name is Sarah. We just got back from that trip to Colorado, the one I always wanted to take. We hiked, we talked, we sat in comfortable silence, and not once was a weapon. We're building a life where invisible isn't a threat. It's just what you call the quiet, steady work of building a foundation together. I heard through a former colleague that Catherine did, in fact, have to sell the house. The bank wouldn't wait for her to win a power move. She apparently moved back to her hometown in the Midwest, closer to her parents. And Anya, in a twist of irony I couldn't have written, her own husband filed for divorce about 8 months after I left. Apparently, he was tired of the endless drama and feeling like a supporting character in her game. It turns out that when you treat your life like a game and your partner as an opponent, you shouldn't be surprised when you both end up losing. I didn't win anything by leaving. I just escaped. I escaped a game I never signed up to play. And in doing so, I finally found a partner who was willing to talk. And that is where our story ends. Thank you for staying with me through that. This is Inspiration Seeker, and we tell these stories because in every difficult situation, there's a lesson to be found. The real question is, what do you think? Was the invisible treatment a harmless game, or was it the end of the marriage before it even began? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I read them all. If this story resonated with you, and if you want to hear more, please show your support by hitting that like button. And, of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and ring that bell. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next story.